Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to For Navi Star Wars, and welcome to the rebranding of my channel. I wanted to start off by giving you some basic reasons as to why so many fans of Star Wars, whether they are hardcore fans, passive, or they just watch the movies, dislike Star Wars The Last Jedi so much. This is, I've been saying on Twitter, a very divisive film. Um, and for a lot of reasons. Ever since Star Wars The Force Awakens came out, we were introduced to so many interesting new characters. We were introduced to Rey. She was a very strong, force sensitive individual. We were introduced to Kylo Ren, somebody who is extremely conflicted, a very dynamic character. We were introduced to Supreme Leader Snoke, a strong dark side user. We were introduced to the Resistance. We were introduced to the First Order. So many questions that we had about not only these characters, but about these two new groups. And Disney has supplied us with a lot of means to be able to do research on these characters and groups by means of books, by means of comics. As an example, the Aftermath trilogy. Um, and I, myself, and many other fans have tried to theorize, come up with ways to figure out who exactly these people are. As an example, who Snoke is, who Supreme Leader Snoke is. I tried at one point thinking maybe it's Darth Plagueis the Wise. Again, maybe he didn't really die. Maybe they're going to do a whole new spin on it because all the old expanded universe stuff from the Legends canon is completely out the window because Disney threw it all out. So maybe it's really Darth Plagueis, or maybe it's Rax from the Aftermath trilogy. The potential for these characters were so big, it was so many, and yet despite all that, Star Wars The Last Jedi kind of had us feeling, and I include myself, a bit unfulfilled. Now, let me start off by saying that I did enjoy this film. I actually probably would consider this, and I've seen this film 3 times. After the second viewing, I did give it about I would say an A plus, but I'm probably going to drop it down to about a solid B. But the reason for that is because there's just a lot of things about the film that I just genuinely didn't like. Um, Now, I am going to give you top 5 reasons as to why there were things there, why there are so many fans that just don't like it. Right now, as it stands on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics love this film. It's got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, but fans have it at a 57%. It is considered rotten by fans. That's how divisive this film is. I mean, that's huge. I don't think there's ever been a Star Wars film that has been so divisive um, by by any means whatsoever. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that The Force Awakens, when it first came out, um, even when that one first came out 2 years ago, not even that one received such a low score. It was considered an 88% for audience scores. So that just goes to show you how this film has torn the fan base apart. So let's just go ahead and get right into it as far as the top 5 reasons why so many fans don't like this film. Reason number 1 is the plot holes. There are so many plot holes in this film, it's not even funny. So I'm just going to go ahead and list them, and I'm going to give you some things that I agree with, some things that I don't. The first plot hole is that rebellion plot. Um, why is it that Vice Admiral Holdo didn't let Poe in on the secret as to that they were just going to go straight to Crate and go and cloak all of those vessels from the very beginning? Instead, she was seeming like a very sneaky person, and if she just would have told people from the very beginning, hey, we're just going to go straight to Crate, um, and we're gonna make it seem like we're gonna keep going off and we're gonna let them blow up all our ships. I mean, it would have saved people's lives, but it also would have avoided Poe's mutiny, and it wouldn't have made her look like a giant jerk. Instead, it made us all think that she was being a giant jerk, and it made us feel like Poe was in the right. And it would have avoided the Rose and Finn mission, which was a completely pointless part of the film, and it felt completely out of pace, and it ruined the place, I'm sorry, and it ruined the pacing of the film. Now, another plot hole was, how did the First Order take over the galaxy so quickly? I mean, the Republic had an army, had a fleet, had a navy. So, how is it that they took over the galaxy so quickly? The opening crawl says that the First Order reigns supreme, but how is it that the First Order did that so fast? Um, I mean, Starkiller Base was destroyed. Now, some of you might say, well, yeah, but, how is it that that news got out? Well, bad news travels fast, but good news travels fast as well. I mean, rallying star systems after the New Republic was destroyed could have said, "Oh heck no, we have to rally around this. We have to fight the resistance because they're evil. So we have to go against them." I mean, that was just left out. We don't know where that New Republic fleet was. We don't know where this army was. Instead, we just had a small little resistance fleet. I mean, where was the Republic fleet? That made no sense to me. What happened to Kylo Ren's obsession with Darth Vader? Um, in the first film, he was talking to Darth Vader's mask. He was trying to communicate with him because he wanted to be pulled to the dark side. Yet, that was just kind of dismissed. I mean, what happened to it? Some might say that that symbolism was destroyed when he destroyed his mask, because his mask, to a certain degree, represented his connection to Darth Vader. And again, I ask, well, why is it that that happened? Because Supreme Leader Snow called it stupid? I mean, that's not motivation enough to suddenly not want to talk to your grandfather to try and have a stronger connection to the dark side. Um, in The Force Awakens, Snoke says Kylo Ren's training would get completed. Yet Kylo Ren doesn't seem any more powerful. So those are just to name a few of the plot holes that I've seen in Reddit and Twitter, on some YouTube comments of reasons why fans are kind of upset with The Last Jedi. Um, Reason number two as to why people are upset. Rey being a nobody. Now, this was a pretty big reveal. After Kylo Ren kills Supreme Leader Snoke, Rey and Kylo Ren are having an intense conversation. And Kylo Ren says to Rey, "Go ahead, say it. What you've known all along. You know who your parents are." And then she says they were nobody. And then that's when Kylo says they were junkards. And that was pretty frustrating, because a lot of people wanted her to be, Palpatine's daughter or Kenobi's daughter, somebody, because of her strong connection with the Force. And I know the theme that they're trying to get at, and I don't necessarily fault Disney for this. And what they're trying to basically say is that anybody can have the power of the Force and have a strong connection to the Force. And let me actually give my 2 cents here and say that this is actually not a bad thing. While I did want Rey to have some sort of lineage, a Skywalker lineage, or a Kenobi lineage, or some sort of lineage, I don't mind the concept that they're going with, because when you really think about it, Disney, what they're doing is they're going in the direction that George Lucas had originally written back in the 1970s, which is that when George Lucas first wrote Star Wars, anybody could essentially have Force powers. And when he originally wrote Star Wars, he based the concept of the Force from a more spiritual aspect. And it was that anyone could use it and have it, because the Force was alive, and the Force surrounded itself with all living things. And those who were more dedicated practitioners of the Force used it in a specific way. And this is why you had different Jedi classes. This is why you had Sith classes. That's why you had counselors, guardians, sentinels. And that's why the Force was more attuned to counselors, because they studied the Force. That's why Jedi Knights, Jedi Guardians were better fighters, because the Force guided them to be better fighters. And they were more attuned to the Force in a different aspect, and the Force flowed through them in that way. But when the concept of midichlorians came out, it made it so that you had to be special. It had to live inside of you. And that's just untrue. That was never the original way it was written. And if you don't believe me, I mean, just see the documentary about the first three Star Wars films and the way George Lucas himself explains this. But at any rate, let's move on to the third point. Um, Snoke. Ah, Snoke, Snoke, Snoke. What was the point of Snoke? For 2 years, fans theorized about Snoke, who Snoke could be, who he was. Was he Darth Plagueis? Was he this? Was he that? I even had one person saying Snoke was a vampire. Um, and it turns out he was nobody. I mean, it could be that he was all. It could be that he still is somebody, and we won't know until we have a book explaining to us everything about Snoke. Just like when uh, Darth Sidious tells Anakin about Plagueis. I mean, and everybody said, "Well, holy crap, who is Darth Plagueis?" And then we got a book explaining to us exactly who Darth Plagueis was. We got comics, we got all this lore explaining to us who Darth Plagueis was. But the films specifically built up this character, and the way he goes out was one of the lamest ways I've ever seen a dark sider going out. And a lot of people could say, well, yeah, Sidious goes out in a lame way. No, I disagree. I disagree 100% because Darth Sidious went out in a way in which Darth Vader picked him up physically and threw him over something. And he was still electrocuting Darth Vader to try and stop him. So, no, I don't think that that's one and the same. This is somebody who was toying with Kylo Ren, toying with Rey. Rey tried to grab her lightsaber and he just spun it around and hit her in the back of the head. You mean to tell me that he couldn't feel that lightsaber moving next to him? And other people could say, well, he was distracted. He was getting so excited that she was going to die that he was distracted. No, 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 no. I'm sorry, but again, that doesn't make sense to a lot of fans, and to a certain point, I agree. Whether he was used purely as character development for Kylo Ren or not, um, it seems like a waste of a character. J.J. Abrams fed us and fed Ryan a great character with great potential, and he did nothing with him other than kill him off, which was disappointing. The fourth was also Captain Phasma. Again, what a waste of a phenomenal character. Um, she served only one purpose, which was to fight Finn, and then she might be dead again. I mean, again, what's the point of this character? She looks cool. I mean, she had a cool moment where they shot, a blaster at her and they just bounced off of her. That was cool, but then she fell in the fire. And if she's not dead again, that's just going to be boring and it's going to be old and it's going to be repetitious and, that's going to be eye rolling. I really do hope she's dead this time. As much as I think Captain Phasma is a really cool character, I really do hope that this time around she's dead. This fourth reason are reasons that I particularly don't like, and that's Luke Skywalker's character. Um, I could understand why Mark Hamill had issues with the way Ryan wrote his character. All we know as far as what is canon is what is episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so we have a 30-year span in between as to why, as to what we don't know what happened between episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and episode 7. So what happened to drastically change Luke? And what I mean by that is, in episode 6, Luke Skywalker goes on a suicide mission to save his father, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, because he feels conflict within him and he can sense that there is good in him. He wants to turn him from the dark side. Now, Darth Vader is known as the greatest Jedi killer that ever lived. He killed more Jedi than any other Darksider that has ever lived in the Star Wars galaxy in Star Wars lore. Any other Jedi. Now, despite all of that, he still feels good within him, so he goes and tries to redeem him, and he's successful in doing so. So, despite having all of the dark side influence from Emperor, from Darth Sidious, all that stuff, he still goes and does all of that. He still redeems his father. Now, we get a snippet in The Last Jedi, which is one of my favorite things when we have a flashback explaining what happens. And I was like, okay, cool, we're going to find out why it is that, Kylo Ren turns on Luke. We're going to see Snoke influencing him, something. Nope. Instead, he can see what's happening inside of his mind. He says he has dark side tendencies. He says he can see into his future and that he is irredeemable. And he can see that he's going to sack the Jedi Temple, that he can cause murder and destruction and all those things. So he decides he's going to murder him. How did Luke get to this point? Luke Skywalker, the character who thought his father was redeemable, someone who did far worse at this point than Kylo Ren, and yet he decides, I'm going to kill my nephew, my sister's son, my best friend's son, because I can sense he's going down an evil path, who has dark side tendencies I myself have used to defeat my own father when I was battling him inside the Death Star. How does that make any sense at all as far as Luke's character development? What happened within those 30 years that Luke suddenly decides, I can't redeem him, I can't help him, there's just no way about it, I can't do it. I'm speechless at the fact that Luke seriously was going to kill his nephew over this. Makes zero sense to me. Makes absolute zero sense. And you know what? As far as why Kylo Ren turned on him and turned to the dark side, makes 100% sense. Absolutely doesn't make sense. As to why Luke would turn on him, or why Luke would suddenly feel this way, I should say, zero sense. That part of the story, that is such a huge plot hole to me that it is almost irredeemable to make Luke a murderer and say, you know what, I was about to kill him. And he even says in the story, I was about to kill him, and then I realized, oh man, I had made a mistake. But then Kylo saw it and it was too late at that point, and I tried to stop him and say no, but at that point it was too late. How does he even get to that point either way? He was afraid, he was this, he was that. How does he get there? I don't understand how this character could have gotten there when he redeemed his own father. I mean, you can say it's apples and oranges. No, it's not. It's apples and apples. He redeemed his own father who he saw good in. And you mean to tell me that he saw no good in Kylo Ren whatsoever? That makes no sense, man. None. And you can tell me that I'm wrong and that I just don't understand Star Wars, but I'm here to tell you I've been following Star Wars for over 20 years. I've collected book upon book upon book upon comic upon comic upon comic. So you can tell me whatever you want. That makes no sense. Luke's death and fight sequence. When this first happened and started and they started shooting at Luke, oh my gosh, was I excited. Because when Luke just goes and flicks his shoulder that way, I was like, holy crap, he's deflecting it with the Force, and they're just kind of like going off to the side. I'm like, yes, they're doing things right. And then he's just a Force projection. Now, as far as powers go, this is nothing new, even to the Legends universe. Force projections are nothing new. But then when he says, I'll see you around, kid, I got excited. I said, oh, this is awesome, cool. And then he dies. He transcends into the physical force, and that's it. He's dead. 40 years I've waited to see Luke Skywalker come back, and I get a grumpy old man. I get nothing, and instead what I get is him dying after using force projections. You know what he should have done? He should have picked up all those walkers, thrown them to the side, and flung Kylo Ren like the little whiny girl that he is. That's what should have happened, because he's Grand Master Luke Skywalker, someone who George Lucas said is the strongest Jedi who's ever lived. That is canon because George Lucas said it. And yet Disney has now made Luke nothing other than a dude who was on on Octo the entire time, using force projections to let the rebels go away, and then saying, hey man, I'm not the last Jedi, Rey's gonna be a Jedi. So that's it, guys. Those are the top 5 reasons I believe people just dislike and hate The Last Jedi. I definitely don't hate it. Even though it sounds like I do, I really don't. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. There are things that I really disliked about the film. And the things I disliked, I really disliked. But despite all of those things, it was a really good movie, and I would encourage people to go see it. I've already seen it 3 times. And I sympathize with those people that really disliked it, and I can understand why they disliked it. But that's all out. That's all I have to say. Please let me know if you guys agree with me in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, share, and hey, please subscribe.